Hey, family, what's going on, y'all? It's your girl, your cousin, Tanesha Peoples, live with my homeboys, my partners in good trouble, Mr. Nehemiah Frank and Mr. Jason B. Allen. And we are the trio that talks that real shit. We used to do it on Mondays, but now we on Fridays. And I don't know about y'all, but I think that it's better that y'all get us at the end of the week to like top off, all the stress because, I mean, we just dope as hell, So here we are on Fridays at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll be talking that real shit from here on out on Fridays. How y'all been? How y'all been?
Good. I'm happy to see you. It's been a minute.
Man, I've been missing, bro. I've been MIA. I've been here, but I've been out in these streets.
You've been
MIA.
Flying to the beach. You've been traveling, doing self-care.
It's important in this work. It's important in this work. Gotta, keep ourselves together because, man, being Black in America is a trip. It's a trip. As we all know.
Period.
Right. So y'all, let's get into the tea. Let's talk about what's been going on. Let's Josh got do I gotta do the little thing? I don't know.
Hey, you did it.
I didn't do it. Josh did that. Shout out to Josh in the background.
Yeah, so the tea. So we got two things. I don't know if you guys saw the video earlier this week. It went viral on Instagram. It has been shared thousands of times. We don't even know the names of these individuals. So Karen was hollering at Brother Man at a Steelers game, right? The brother does everything he can to keep himself from putting his hands on her. I don't even really think that he struck her at all, but pretty much what she did, they're arguing, she's in his face. She's already a level up in the stands from him. So she's like towering over him, hollering at him. And then she slaps him in the face.
Yeah, she did.
And the thing that provoked the slap was the Black man. He was standing there. She actually had her hand on him at the time while she was yelling at him. So he snatched away, and then that's when she slapped him. And then all hell broke loose after that. So I don't know if y'all saw that. I think it, really speaks to the level of privilege that she thought that she had.
And audacity. The audacity. I mean, maybe she had to be on some drugs. Like these people that think they can just raise up on Black people and call them the N word and fight us and shit like that. Like you ain't seen the videos where everybody done got their ass beat. Like there are receipts,
right?
Like consistent receipts on the internet of people getting their ass beat thinking they could just roll up on Black people.
Right.
Like girl, like
I think that it's just a part of the nature though too, right? I was listening to a couple of women who were like, yeah, my brother had been in a marriage where his wife was physically abusive to him and verbally abusive. And that's a conversation people don't like want to acknowledge. Race probably did play a major factor, but she was so comfortable with being in a man's face and like, oh, you're not going to do what I say, so I have to resort to becoming physical with you. And that's an issue across our nation with domestic violence increasing and people just feeling like I have to tell you how I feel, and if you don't receive it, then I have to react. And that's the teacher in me coming out, because I'm like, this is why I'm in classrooms teaching children how to be better than adults, because they see us, they're watching this and they're like, now Mr. Allen, what would you have done in that situation? And I said, listen, it wouldn't have even been a situation because she would have not been talking to me like that. And I said, that's the caveat, that we feel as if we have to stop and entertain the foolishness of people. And I told my students, I said, it wouldn't have happened, because when I saw that she was getting to a point of, you have to address me in a disrespectful manner, God bless you, baby, because in the hood, God bless you means let me walk off before something happens. It doesn't need to happen.
But let me push back a little bit though, because why should first of all, we know that I don't know what's in the water with the pandemic, but everybody hostile, right? Number one. Yeah. So had he tried to walk off, there's a strong likelihood that she was gonna follow him and further provoke him. And so that's the other thing. So at the end of the day, she had that motherfucking slap coming. Oops, excuse my language. It's Friday. We cut loose on Fridays. But the second thing is that why should Black people constantly have to leave spaces at the threat of white people?
Right.
Like he was at the game enjoying himself. Why should he have to walk off and leave?
Yeah.
So
like she did.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, like we of course we don't want to see nobody get knocked the TF out. But at the same time, it's like if you got to defend yourself. Like if you did everything you could to de-escalate the situation and she's still running up in your face, knock her ass out. Especially if she lay hands on you. Don't just knock Karen's out for the hell of it. But if she lay hands on you, knock her ass out.
So there's another part to it. So Karen's, we don't know if it was her husband, but anyways, we just gonna call him Ken because Ken Karen. So anyways, her cousin, her husband, whoever it was, her brother was sitting next to her as she's, escalating the situation. And so the second she slaps a homeboy, he goes into the tunnel and then he lunges at her, like he had tunnel vision for just a second, like, oh no, I'm in danger. I just got slapped. I'm about to, it was his natural reflex as a human being to defend himself. So anyway, Ken then jumped up out of his chair, y'all. You know that Ken did not want to be involved because he was sitting down the whole time, right? He's like, man, you don't sit your ass down, Karen. You know that's what he was saying.
I can't take her nowhere.
Words. Can't take her nowhere, right? Anyways, he lunges at the brother. The brother like just one punch. I think it might have been like a swing or two, and then he gets knocked down. So he's back sitting in the seat, like damn near knocked out. And then the other white men, they start jumping in and stuff, saying, get your ass out of here. Like one of the guys actually told him to get out of there. And I'm like, well, wait a second. He bought a ticket. He didn't even start the fight. One of the ladies is screaming on the video saying she hit him first. So
yeah,
that's that.
And there was a couple of people who were actually like, no, like she started it. Like you all need to address her. And that is important because we should not be made to leave from spaces. But here's the reality. Like we know the society we live in. And it's unfortunate that we have to always be proactive. And, like I tell my students, you got to think smart. And well, what's thinking smart? When here's the reality. I can only control me. I can't control what the police, I can't control what other people are going to do. And if Karen and Ken or any of the other K family members wanted to jump in and do whatever they wanted to do, we have to be in spaces where we know that we're going to be protected. And if no one else is going to do it, then by any means necessary, and I'm very clear on that, I don't condone violence. However, I'm realistic as well. If I'm in a situation where I need to defend myself, then by all means. And I do tell my students that you should never be in a situation where you just sit on your hands and you physically, verbally, emotionally let someone abuse you or abuse you in any way. You should never do that. So I just want to be clear because, sometimes Karen and Ken, they hear what they want to hear. And I wanted to be clear about that. You have to protect yourself and you shouldn't have to be put in situations where people feel they have the right to disrespect you. We have to address that in this country.
But I think let's close this out and move on to the next topic. But just two things before we close it out. One of the questions I have is, or one of the, I think, learning curves is, this is a larger conversation when we're talking to our, Black people and especially our young Black people about how they respond to in situations in which they're being attacked, specifically about with the police. And so this is definitely a conversation that we need to keep going because it's like, in which situations can you defend yourself? And we've seen that when you try to defend yourself against police, it always turns out bad. It always turns out with, murder or assault. And the second thing is I put in the chat, like, I just wonder if they, dreamt about an ass whoop the night before, because that's definitely what they got. So Karen and Ken, if you didn't know, now you know, goddammit.
Right.
Neo, what's the Neo? You wanted to talk about Sha'Carri. I'll put our little sister Sha'Carri, Lord.
Our Poe baby. So anyways, I think a lot of people just forget that this young lady is 21. So Black Twitter, y'all, Black Twitter been coming for her. Black Twitter needs to get their ass under control and remember that Sha'Carri Richardson is only 21 years old. Like the next runners, the Jamaicans that whooped her last weekend, they're like 10 years older than her, right? So these are some things to just to consider and to think about. Not to mention she's gone through a lot. But anyways, Felix Jones, who just, I believe she just retired. You know, she just had a cesarean section in 2019. You know, she set up, turned around, ran, did really well in Tokyo. She actually had a lot of positive things to say about her when she was on one of the Tonight Show, I believe it was.
I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, right? So she was on a Jimmy Kimmel show. Had a lot of nice things to say about Sha'Carri Richardson, and Sha'Carri Richardson did not. She pulled a Sha'Carri, I guess, and went on Twitter and pretty much said that, you know, she didn't care, you know, about what Sha'Carri Richardson or what Felix Jones had to say. So and a lot of people came for her, which is I think it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. So. What are y'all thoughts about that?
Jay, you want to go?
I was just gonna say, you know, age ain't nothing but a number, and let's just remember Aaliyah and the, you know, her passing on the 25th that a lot of people acknowledge this week. But you know, the reality is maturity can come at any age, and you know, being a former track coach of middle school students, I have middle school students that would have handled that much differently. And so it goes back to our experiences, and it goes back to our character at the end of the day. And I think that the call for supporting her is so important because the overarching issue is that she's still grieving. And being young is really hard to grieve someone that has held such a major space in your life. And so I don't want to make excuses for her, but I also want to acknowledge that, you know, in our trauma, in our grief, we revert back to characteristics that may not be good, bad, or indifferent. And sometimes in our grief, it's the latter. And so I think that she does need a lot of support. And, you know, overarching, people need to stop being so judgmental. And I know that's never going to go away, but that's the issue. Like, why? It happened, but listen, the only thing I could do for you is send up some, you know, positive thoughts, some prayers, light a candle, and keep moving. Like the investment of people to tear her down and, you know, write articles, and I have to do a whole interview about her response and her. Y'all are too invested in the wrong thing. Where's your money? Where is it going to? Is it going to Black-owned businesses? Is it going to schools? Like, what is it going to? That you have all this money and time to be invested in attacking and tearing somebody down. And that is what Black Twitter and everyone else in America needs to check themselves on.
I mean, here's what I have to say. I think that somebody made a video and made a very good point. The internet was so, I think the internet is the blessing and the curse, number one, because the internet was so focused on dragging Sha'Carri that they forgot to congratulate Sis Felix. Right. Yeah, and that's important. It's like at the end of the day, whether, you know, Sis was Jamaican, American, or whatever, we all Black. And we all got to support and uplift each other, especially in an arena that's predominantly that's just filled with white privilege, you know. So that's number one. But like Jason said, that we have to remember that Sis is young, she's grieving, she's going through a lot of trauma, she's been thrust into this spotlight of being a celebrity, of somebody that's supposed to represent the entire Black race. Like she's in a whirlwind of emotions and identities and stuff like that, you know, she may not know how to handle as a 21-year-old, especially someone that may not have like a significant support system. So I want to have grace. I want to have grace, but I also want this, you know, this young sister to be successful. And I hope she got the right people in her corner, because we all believe in being authentic. Like you from Dallas, I don't know. I think you said Neo earlier, South Dallas. Definitely be you, where you came from, represent your people, represent your hood. But at the same time, whatever professionalism looks like in that space, you have to carry that too. And so I hope that she has people in her corner that are not trying to sabotage her career before it even gets started, because she's very, 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 very talented, and too many wrong moves can, you know, throw that all away. So that's all I'm saying is that y'all just stop dragging it. Y'all act like y'all perfect. I mean, she said some stuff on social media. It's like if y'all go back to my Facebook page when it first started, oh my God. So
the Facebook memories, they hit different when it's like 15 years ago. I was like, I was really like, like 20 years ago. I'm like, oh my God. But that is the grace that we have to be able to give ourselves. And also, even on today's conversation around critically thinking about race and culture and how all of that plays a part in what we're taught. And we are taught to attack Blackness.
Yep.
And so that's another caveat to this conversation, is that we are training our children.
Yeah.
We are training people. It doesn't matter the culture, the ethnicity. We are training people around the world how they should treat Black people when they make a mistake. Down them, drag them,
well, let's
shield
say,
them, make sure there's nothing else. When they do something good, don't acknowledge it, don't focus on it. And so we are fighting critical race theory. And as a teacher, I'm hearing we're fighting critical thinking. Because if I don't teach someone about a culture, then we see what we're seeing on Black Twitter and on social media outlets around how Black, from Lizzo to Lil Nas X, and the list can go on, how they're attacked by not doing the status quo. So that's
real talk.
But I think that's a great segue into today's conversation. But before we go there and introduce our guests, I want to, as always, ask you guys to share this conversation out, show us some love, drop some comments in the chat, because we want y'all to engage with this, too. Like, this critical race theory BS been going on for so long. I know everybody's still frustrated with it. And so, speaking of that, we go bring our guests on because they pissed off. So, Neo, you want to go ahead and introduce our homeboys?
Yeah. So from Texas, we have Courtney, and then from Florida, by way of Oklahoma, we have Khalil. Two brothers that I have been following. I've been connected with them for a long time. And I will say this publicly, Khalil, brother, I am so sorry it took this long to get you on this podcast. I should have been brought you on. Take yourself off mute. Did you want to say something? I saw you talking.
How's that?
No, yeah, we go.
We can hear you.
Okay, no, I appreciate the invite, man. No worries. I'm just glad to be here. All good.
Glad to have you.
All right, so let's just jump right on into it. Critical race theory is the second poison that's going on besides the coronavirus in the school fights. Courtney, I know you're dealing with some issues down there in Texas. Tell us what's going on with critical race theory in your state.
Wow. So, ever since George Floyd's murder, I feel like critical race theory has become the hot button topic that conservative people in America have used to combat, well, why is everyone so mad? Why is everyone so angry? Oh, we must be teaching everyone to be mad and angry about these things. So let's stop this in the schools. Here in Texas, they've been extremely aggressive. Our governor, Governor Greg Abbott, who I just think is one of the worst people in the United States, I'll say it because we talking that real stuff, right? So yeah. he is a terrible, absolutely terrible governor. And I think that he's slowly destroying our education system. He's out to kill all of our people, but that's a whole other topic. Right now, I just think that it's a backlash reaction to people waking up and realizing that we have a voice, we have an equal voice, and we're going to take that voice, but we're going to take the table away. We have a seat at the table, and we're not just sitting there. You're going to listen to us and have us actively participate in the conversation. But there are a lot of people who just can't handle that. And so they're attacking the very fiber of, well, how did you get this empowerment? Where is all this coming from? What is the root of this? So it must be something that we're teaching. We're teaching these people, we've done you so wrong, and now we should feel bad for how we've treated you. Well, yeah, you should, but at the same time, let's do better. Let's not just react to that. Let's actually do better. Texas is a whole situation. It's no different than what's going on in the rest of the country. I look to my neighbors up north where you guys are in Oklahoma, and it's just like I'm constantly shaking my head, and I'm just like, between our two states, what's going on? What is happening in education? And it's scary to see, but that's why we have to have conversations like this and try and make it right.
That's right. Awesome. So just to let everybody know that's watching, Tanesha, she is actually in Chicago. Jason is in Atlanta. I am near Atlanta, and Khalil is in Florida. So we're all over the place. We have viewers all across the country that are watching. So the next question is for all y'all, whoever wants to jump in on this. So there seems to be a lot of confusion on like what exactly needs to be attacked, as far as like, you know, people that are on the far right that are attacking or that are part of this anti-critical race theory movement. They yell out Marxism. They yell out all of these other terms. I'm pretty sure that they probably have never even studied. From what I understand, critical race theory started off as a college course, right? And somehow it's funneled down into our schools. I mean, I don't really know. So I'm asking y'all, like, it really seems like there's a lot of confusion going on around, you know, what people are actually trying to attack when it comes to critical race theory. What are y'all thoughts on that?
I think I'm sorry, sis. Go ahead.
No. So go ahead. You the guest. I'm sorry, because I can sound off, but we want to hear you. They hear me all the time.
Most definitely.
No. I think the main issue with critical race theory is that the wording, the messaging. Critical race theory. It's not a theory. These are facts. We have the receipts. They're historical. We can present them in a way that it's factual. So let's just stop with the bull about the theory. These are facts. I want to tell a story. I live in Melbourne, Florida, and right above us north, about 20 minutes, is a city called Vieira. And they were having a town hall discussing critical race theory. And if you could have seen the looks on these white men's face, they were in utter, like, they just looked like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And the reason why I feel like they have an issue with it is because it exposes their fraudulence and their mediocrity. See, here's what the deal is about white people in America. They've always had this mentality that, yeah, hey, I got the job right. I got the house right. I did all of these things right. But if you look at them historically and you go through history, you see when they have obtained critical race theory is putting everything in a ball and saying this is how you got what you got. From slavery to the Industrial Revolution, generational wealth has been built, passed down from generation to generation. As you walk around with your chest poked out, looking at people, the others are the less thans. Well, they're not equal to me because they live in the projects. But critical race theory, but critical race theory is exposing their fraudulence and their mediocrity. And now they're like, oh my God, here I am thinking and have everybody convinced that I'm this and that, and I got this stuff. They were given land, 2 billion acres of land was given to white people after the land rush. Come on, they were given land. Generational wealth was built in the Industrial Revolution. And now you look at Black people, and we've had to deal with mass incarceration. We had to deal with the war on drugs. I mean, you got a 400-year head start, and I caught up with you. I mean, let's just be honest. You got a 400-year start, and I caught up to you. So now I'm equal to you, and you're going to say, and now you're upset because your fraudulence and your mediocrity is being exposed. That's all it is. That's why they had that look on their face. That's why they're, oh my God, I can't believe you guys. No, yes, you have been helped. The government sanctioned help with the government, sanctioned help with banks, redlining. I could go on and on and on all day. But man, that's what the issue is. That's why they're fighting it. They're just upset.
Khalil.
Being exposed.
So let me.
That was a mic drop. I'm sorry. Can we just take a pause?
I'm trying.
That was a real mic drop. It really was.
Y'all excited about these guests today? Make sure you're sharing. Make sure y'all sharing it. So look, Khalil, okay? So we got the receipts right here, right? So shameless plug. Greenwood 100 magazine, the Black Wall Street Times, produced it this past year. We just dropped it for the centennial. And we have Slaves in the Family here, which is about the mayor of Tulsa's family, right? At the end of slavery, we found 951 enslaved people under this family. 951, right? They have been enslaving Black people, building their generational wealth, passing their generational wealth down since Jamestown, since 1619, all the way until 1865, when the Civil War ended. So just think about like how much of a head start his family had and how he was able to move into political power and financial power and be able to, you know, say, oh, well, we're not going to give reparations for the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. So, I mean, that's just one receipt from one family, right? Just one family.
I wanted to go back to our brother's comments and just how powerful that was. My comment that I'm putting in the comment section of the show is highlighting my school leader, Christina Guillen. You know, we've had this conversation with our parents, and I've made the statement before that it's not critical race theory, because here's the reality, and I'm so shocked that more educators have not spoken out about this. We can look at our state curriculums and we know that theories are connected to science. And so we are thinking about race in a scientific manner, that this was calculated.
That's right.
So racism is in fact something that can be calculated. But moreover, we're not teaching critical race theory in public schools, PK through 12 at all, because we don't even have multicultural curriculum. So the insult is that we have parents that are up in arms about critical race theory, and children who come from different countries. My mom is a retired ESOL teacher, and she taught students that came from all over the world, and we don't even have resources to translate for them. So how are we teaching critical race theory when we're already not even funding multicultural curriculum that teaches the true essence of the Black experience, the experience of those immigrants that come from Mexico and other countries? Like, we don't even teach that and acknowledge that in schools. So I wanted to say that it definitely is not a theory, it's facts. And we're not even presenting factual information to our children in public schools.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to jump in because I think that it's up to us to really, everybody's using this normalized language, right? Can we normalize calling it what it is? Because if you're talking about science and you're talking about facts, we're not talking about this term that they've made up to, again, confuse people politically and academically. What we're talking about is them refusing to teach history that we have receipts, which is factual. So I think that it's up to us as leaders, as advocates, as, you know, support people that want the history taught right, to normalize using it and calling it what it is, so that we can get more people on board. Because I was thinking a few weeks ago about how there are so many people that have set up organizations just to fight the teaching of critical race theory, right? And, you know, again, they're fighting teaching history. Black people don't have that capacity. We fighting different shit every day. And so for us to set up an organization like, okay, now we got to set something up to fight critical race theory, we ain't got time for that. So let's call it what it is. Let's call it them not wanting to teach our kids. Number one, that's number one. Because another thing is they talking about all these conversations about back to school. Ain't nobody talking about back to education. But then at the same time, we can't even go back to education because we were never there. And so that's a whole separate issue. But let's call it what it is. Y'all don't want to teach our kids. Y'all don't want these white kids to know the truth because y'all want them to continue to carry this idea of privilege and supremacy and hold it over and oppress our generations. Like, no, so normalize calling it anti-history and not critical race theory. That's real.
You know,
that's my
Tanesha. Tanesha, I think it's really interesting that history, when we're taught history, it's the Black part is separated and it's put into a little category that only happens in February. Why is Black history not a part of the timeline of United States history? Why are we not teaching it on the timeline and normalizing it as, yes, people in Black Americans were just as much a part, an active part of this country all during the spectrum, the entire timeline from the very beginning. Normalize it, put it as part of history and not just shove it into February, the shortest month where you have the fewest days to talk about it. No, this is our country too. And that's what, when education gets to that point where we can actually be a part of the timeline and not just a special segment off to the side, that's when we can start to really have conversations and really
Like we a commercial
really
break.
educate our kids. Yeah, we a commercial break.
Yes,
It has to
Like
be a
slavery was a
every year.
commercial break, and now for this commercial break in American history, we bring you slavery. The hell?
Oh,
Yes.
that's good. That's perfect. That's perfect. So
Yeah.
I want to jump in right quick on the commercial break for our public service announcement. And this is something that we do within our show. So while we're talking about critical race theory, this book, we do this till we free, or we do this till we free us. And it's important that we highlight this because critical race theory really highlights the fact that just like we're commercial, it's a commercial break. Our students don't get the inclusion of seeing themselves in a lot of the documentaries that we're using from Netflix, from PBS and other stations. One of the questions my students always ask is, well, where were the Black people? And I'm like, right, like we know we were there, we were present, but we're not in the main story, and we're not a short story. And so I wanted to highlight this book. We do this till we're free. It's something that our Bright Bean family is reading, one of many books, but we need more of these books in our schools, and currently we don't have them. So that's our short public service announcement. Advocate for books that are written by people of color, that are uplifting all areas of cultures and ethnicities that have been left out of the main conversation. It's time for us to be a part of the main conversation.
Absolutely.
And Jason, you bring up such a really good point. You know, we're not centering our or the Black narratives, right? Or even just giving them 15 minutes or 20, 30 minutes, if they're even giving Black history for a month at their schools, depending on where they are in the country, right? If you're in a very conservative area in the country, I doubt that you're giving an entire month of Black curriculum to your students, right? But that reminds me, of the Crispus Attucks, right? The first person who died in the American Revolution. Man, I focused so hard on him and his story just to get my kids interested in learning about the American Revolution. And guess what? They ate it up. My Black students, they ate it up. They were like, oh, wow, this brother died for the American Revolution. But then I had to teach that critical race theory part, right? Which came in the form of, well, I mean, this brother did die for the revolution, but at the same time, was his death in vain? Because millions, these 500,000 Black people ended up becoming enslaved. So how do y'all feel about that? Like, I literally taught all the way around when I was giving that lesson to my students, just so they can think critically, like, about, was this brother, did he do the right thing? Fighting for the American Revolution? Should he been on the other side fighting for freedom for the Black folks? Right. So if that's critical race theory, then damn it, I'm for it, because I think that we should be teaching the wholeness of of American history, period. So what are y'all thoughts? Any thoughts on that? About how we?
I think it's essential that our story is told, but our story has to be told in such a way that it's compelling and it's educational. And like I stated earlier, about the fraudulence and the mediocrity being exposed, there's this term that I coined called the currency of whiteness. In America, if you're white, you have this currency. It's an unseen currency, but it's there. And it adds value. It has value in this country. There are certain things that as a white person that you just don't have to deal with. You don't drive by the cops and instinctively look in your rearview mirror to see if they're going to hit the brakes and turn around because they saw you. There are certain things that you just don't have to deal with. So critical race theory now has devalued the currency of whiteness, because the currency of whiteness holds a lot of weight in this country. It's this ideal of superiority. And it protects a lot of white people because there are certain things they just don't have to deal with. So now when you look at the critical race theory, we're saying, oh, okay, once again, you had help. Government sanctioned help, redlining, attack, the war on drugs, mass incarceration. The receipts show that there's been an all-out war on people who are Black and look like me and everyone on this panel. It's documented. So now what we have now is this currency that I spoke of earlier is being devalued. Now people are looking and saying, oh, okay, you did have help and you did have a hand up. And you didn't have boots. You had the boots, the strap, and the uniform. Everything has been geared, set up to help you. The Constitution, when it was written, they didn't have me in mind. They had you in mind. They were written. The Constitution was written by rich old white men. Who runs this country? Rich old white men.
Joe Biden, he's very old.
I was gonna say it.
Hold on, y'all. Before we go any further, because I don't know how, like, y'all dropping gems. So I don't know, people that are watching the show, y'all show some love, because y'all getting it. Y'all getting this work Friday. I don't know, I'm getting to work, so y'all got to be getting to work, because we be feeling each other. It's an energy thing. Y'all show some love on this broadcast and share it out, because they dropping bars, Jay-Z bars. Like back when rap was rap bars, hip hop was rap bars. So y'all share that Nas bars.
Nas bars. Too.
Nas bars. They bars are being dropped. So y'all make sure y'all share this out. Hey, significant bars. No. But I just want to make that announcement. So I want Courtney to get in. No.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I really want to piggyback off of what something Khalil just said. You know, a lot of people have asked me, well, Courtney, how do we go about fixing this? How do we fix the structure? And I have to remind them that you can't fix something that was never meant to be fixed. You know, from the foundation, our foundation was not ever meant to be equal. We were never meant to be a part of the conversation. So how are we going to spend time trying to fix something that we were never meant to be a part of? If we really want equality, and everyone thinks I'm radical in saying this, you have to start from the bottom. You have to tear down everything that we know about America and start from the beginning. Our Constitution is a fraud for us. We were not part of We the People. That wasn't us. We wasn't in that dream, you know. And so how can we ever gain equal footing if we were never meant to be a part of the conversation? And you know, that's what I also get that from what Khalil just said. You know, man, the framework. We were set up to fail, but now, as he mentioned earlier, all of that happened, and now we've caught up. And now we're running with you. And a lot of times we're running past you. And now you're really concerned. Now they're really concerned. Now what are we going to do? Okay, let's stop talking about it. Let's stop teaching it in schools. Because they're so bothered. They're so bothered.
So can I ask a question? Because a lot of stuff that you said was interesting. And I think about this all the time. So if the fabric of American culture is rooted in racism, which is connected to like capitalism and all this stuff, is there an opportunity, or is there hope that we will ever be equal in this country, given the fact that the design was that for us not to be so? Can equality exist in American fabric, such as it is for Black people, even if we tear it down? Because we've tried to tear it down historically for over 400 years, and it hasn't, not to say that it hasn't worked. Like, we made progress, obviously, but are they going to let us tear down their whole country and say, okay, everybody kumbaya and everybody starting fresh and new and we all equal? Like, is that realistic? What should Black people do?
Yeah, I think that, of course, they're not going to let us tear it all down and start over. But what we have to realize, and what we have to do, is educate those people and make people understand and realize that this is the problem. And this is where the power of the white ally comes into play. A lot of Black people, and I'm again, we talking that real stuff. So a lot of Black people really have a problem with white people that come to the table and say, oh, they're right, and we want to support you. Because instead of saying, yay, we support you, we're always like, well, where you been? Where you been? But you know, hey, they're here now. They're the ones with the power. So if they have the power to make change, then why not support them in using that power to make the change?
Courtney, I love you, brother, but I really want to, like, I'm looking at Khalil's face, and I know he got something to say.
I know Khalil, he does.
Go ahead and speak your. Go ahead and speak your.
Nehemiah, you know me so well. Here's and the question that the sister asked, and I'm going to answer it from my perspective, because somebody asked me that question, and just keeping it 100, as I like to do and will always do. One of the first things they said, well, how can Black people get over this whole experiment called America and become equal, I believe the first thing that has to happen, that's from Jay-Z and Beyonce, all the way down to Pookie and Ray Ray, all the way down to Pookie, from LeBron to that brother up under the bridge. We have to come with the reality. The reality is, and I'm going to say this very slowly so that all our listeners can get this, we're Black. We are not Americans.
Y'all better hit the like button.
Now, I'm not saying that just throwing it out there, trying to be cute. We are not Americans, because if we were, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the justice system, fair housing, mass incarceration, all of these things, we wouldn't have to suffer under that until we come to that reality that we are not Americans, because the same rules don't apply to us. So how could you call yourself an American when these documents that our founding fathers wrote for the quote unquote experiment called America, they don't apply to us? They have nothing to do with us. They weren't written with us in mind. They don't apply to us. We have been catching hell for a long time in this country, and there's still people who call themselves American. You are not an American. You're wasting your time trying to figure out, first of all, you're wasting time trying to be an American, because America has never seen you as anything equal to them. Only time they need you is when it's time to fight for the flag and come back home, and you can't even get a house loan. I'm just saying, and these, once again, we got the receipts. GIs, I'm a veteran. GIs, my uncle, who was a Montfort Marine, served in the war, came back, couldn't get a loan. Plenty of Black people. So we're not Americans. We're not treated equal. The Constitution doesn't apply to us. The judicial system doesn't apply to us. The banking system sure doesn't apply to us. So how can we say we're Americans when we're not afforded the same opportunities that other races are that call themselves American? And
so what are we? And is that true all across the world? Because then you have kind of this, then you going into socioeconomic oppression, and then you going into like caste system. So what are we?
As far as what we are lost. We're in a bad situation. We're in a bad place because the system was never set up for us. If you look at the term crabs in a basket, right? That term, we all use it. And it's so detrimental to Black people because if you look, I was watching a thing on Discovery Channel and they had all these crabs at the bottom of the floor. And all of a sudden, the crab has a natural predator, which is the octopus. But these crabs were all fighting against the octopus because they were in an environment that was conducive for them to fight. So now you have to see it. So now when you take Black people and you put them in an environment that's not conducive for them to show unity, and we even say, oh yeah, we're all crabs in the basket. No, if you look at crabs only have two defense. That's the clips. So these crabs in the basket, they're not looking at the doggone crab above him saying, oh, you can't come out, I'm gonna grab you. No, that's natural defense. They're in a stressful situation. They're in a basket. They're not in an ocean. So now they're just grabbing. So when you take that environment, poor schools, poor education, economic disenfranchisement, and you take it and you take that and you travel it around the world, let me tell you something, y'all, it travels well because I've traveled the world. I lived in Europe for 5 years. I've lived in the Far East. I've seen other cultures. So I know what they do to us. Oh, it travels well in the Philippines. It travels well in Europe. It travels well in all these countries. So it's not synonymous with us. They want to make us seem like there's something wrong with us, but it's really nothing wrong with us.
Y'all, this man is preaching.
There's nothing wrong with it. The system has been set up. So we're not crabs in a basket. We're just reacting to an environment that's not conducive for us to prosper.
Y'all, can I just testify to what he's saying? So, as some of y'all know, and this is going to come to a shock to some people that are watching on Facebook, listen, I moved to Atlanta for a reason, right? I literally, the last time I felt, and I don't want to say that like, you know, every community has its struggles. But when I lived in Chicago, I actually felt safe. When I lived in
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Right? Because there's it was a mini black Mecca, a mini black Wall Street, right before the massacre, and I didn't feel like I was about to be harassed or anything like that. When I moved outside of that community, I felt like an alien, right? When I lived in Oklahoma, I felt the culture shock of coming back to a place that used to be real black, but wasn't so much black like it used to be. And this is not to say that I have an issue being around white folks. I went to a majority white high school, went to majority white college. But there are stresses because, as you mentioned, this country isn't built for us. But since moving to the Black Mecca, or one of them, right, the Atlanta area, like my skin is improved, my mental health is improved. Like, and Khalil, we talk all the time about this. Like I feel like I don't feel the pressure and the anxiety and the stress of living in an environment that's not conducive for me, right? And so, and I didn't really realize that until I left. Like, I didn't even realize that the water was murky until I got out. And and I'm not saying that like people should, be moving or not trying to change their communities, but something must change for sure. Like, and trying with white folks that are also in the murky water with us, and we're trying to tell them that the water is murky, and they've been living in the murky water their whole life. It's like talking to a brick wall.
Yeah. But
Neil,
also, they're also not educated.
I wanted to drop this book, Fade to Black, by Khalil, Hakim. This brother is very, he is a man of words and a learned person. So you can go to Amazon and pick that up.
Awesome.
I'm definitely grabbing that book. And I just want to, Neil, I think that perception is interesting because when you talk about your living experiences in Tulsa, Chicago, and Atlanta, and to me, it really sounded like that conservative racism versus the progressive racism.
Wow.
And because it's like, that like it's in your face in the South. In Atlanta, it's evolving a little bit, but in Chicago, like when you talked about Hyde Park and you felt safe and it was like a black Mecca, no, it's displacement happening all over Chicago, and they ain't no room. If you don't make no money, you can't live in Hyde Park. And so you're
right about that too.
I was just like, wow, like we got to be mindful of that, and I think it goes to that conversation we're talking about how we vote, as black people. It's like we always lean towards Democrats as if progressives are going to treat us right. So that's a whole nother conversation. But where do we go from here, y'all? We've been talking about critical race theory, AKA anti-history. How do we ensure that our community, specifically our kids, are getting what they need to know to be not only successful and learned adults, but black people who know themselves?
Wow.
Where do we go?
That's a powerful question. I want to do a public service announcement right quick.
Okay, go ahead. I'll remember that.
This brother brought up a good point, and I spend a lot of time with seniors, right? So Time Magazine just came out with the future of education, but I want you all to see the future of education. There is a white student on the cover of Time Magazine. And so I'm in Walgreens, right, talking with, retired educators and seniors, and they're like, wow, like the future of education shows a white child who has access and resources and isn't experiencing the learning loss that so many children without access and devices are experiencing. But all of the stories in this magazine don't even speak to what's really happening in education in regards to the have and the have not. Shout out to Tyler Perry and his show that just went off, the have and the have nots. And so I wanted to uplift publications that speak to us, for us, and by us. Because if I didn't have the Black Wall Street Times, if I didn't have Ashe Magazine, my cousins in California, who are uplifting and empowering Black and brown communities, then we wouldn't have resources to give out. And so that public service announcement is important to Khalil's statement of we're not American, because they're showing us constantly that we are not in the picture. We're not included in the stories. And so I wanted to highlight that because, again, if we're going to talk about what's next, we have to collectively build our communities, build our cultures strategically, where educationally and economically we are tearing down the inequities that are putting us back. Because the reality is, if no one else is going to do the community building and coalition building, who else will?
That's
real talk. That's real talk. And you know what, Jason? Like, I'm so happy that you brought up Black media, because it's also like that's how we were able to shake the trees, as my, one of my mentors and friends, Christy, will say. Like, we got to shake the trees, and one of the ways that we do that is through podcasts. We do that through strong ass writers like Jason and Tanesha, and through Black publications like the Black Wall Street Times. Like, it is our defense mechanism. It's one of our first lines of defense against their propaganda, right? It says that teaching critical race theory or teaching Black history, period, is gonna hurt my white child in some sort of way, right? So, well, we got about 5 minutes left here. Where we want to go? Do we have any final thoughts? Are there any more solutions on how to deal with the critical race theory pushback? And it's really, and it's not even a critical race that it's under the guise of critical race theory, right? Like, really, it is an anti-teaching Black history to American students movement that is happening. Like, so how do we fight that? Besides dealing with Black media, one of the things that I have noticed is that these white parents are organized. Somebody is funding them. Somebody's giving them money. Like, they show up, they'll be like, I don't know, 100 deep at a school board meeting, 100 deep, and then they have like their best speakers all ready to go at the front, right? Nobody's fumbling over their words. They're ready to go, even if it's false propaganda. They stick to the script. And the script is very consistent across different states. So what do we need to do as a people in order to push back against this and hopefully try to get some more allies in the future? I hear crickets. Anybody can go.
I was going to say this, that here's the reality we know. And I had a parent on Atlanta this morning that spoke about the inequities in Gwinnett, which is the most diverse county in the state of Georgia. But our white counterparts have the resources. They have the autonomy to not have to work, or if they're leading these nonprofits and organizations, they're doing it because they're volunteering. They're not doing it like a lot of Black and brown women who are running educational entities, and it is their life work. And nonprofits are small businesses. And how are we supporting that funding to actually organize and get people to the table? So I would say that the quickest solution is for us to invest in our Black and brown owned small businesses, nonprofits, and organizations that are doing the work to empower our people, because they're not getting the funding, they're not getting approved for the grants and the loans and the other opportunities that are quote unquote available for them. And so it's important that we make sure that those things happen, and it starts with what we invest in.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
I think it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I
Everybody tries
think
to
it's
get
so
in.
critical,
Double Dutch.
right? Double Dutch. I think it's so important that we embrace. First off, we embrace educators who are actively trying to teach the real history of the United States. Where even though there are so many political organizations and powers that be that are pushing against teaching actual history, we have to embrace those educators who are doing the work, who are dedicated to that work. Be it, going to school board meetings when they get in trouble, or writing, to superintendents when those teachers are getting in trouble. We have to support them because nobody else will. And then the other part of that is we really have to realize that the power of the vote is real, because legislators are making these decisions. So if we vote them out, they can't make those decisions anymore. We have to mobilize. We have to realize our power of voting, which Georgia and Pennsylvania displayed that this past presidential cycle more than any time in the history of the United States. We are relevant to the conversation, and we have to take advantage of the tools that we do have, because there are so few and far between. So what we do have, we have to utilize them to the max.
That's good, and that actually reminds me, you guys. So there's a march on Washington that is happening this Saturday. A lot of the big political icons and civil rights icons are going to be in Washington, D.C., but they're also going to be in cities across the country. They're going to be in Tulsa, Atlanta, definitely Washington, Chicago. So just check that out, March on Washington. You can go on Facebook or Instagram in order to find out if it's going to be, if there is an event happening in a city near you. Who is next?
Just to piggyback off what the brother said about, how do we get this information? Definitely Black educators for sure. Parents, we can't depend on the school system to educate our children about our history.
Come on now.
We really can't. And also Black media. Nehemiah, you are both. You're an educator and you're at Black media. You have a two-pronged opportunity to educate Black people about their history, about who they are. And it's also important that we embrace our history before slavery. Everybody thinks that our history just was slavery and that we were slaves and then that's it. But, it's also important to acknowledge Mansa Musa, Hannibal, and those great Black pillars who were there in Africa, and who actually accomplished things, and it's unfortunate that Hollywood seems to be so important on making movies about our suffering and our trauma. But I'm waiting for them to make a movie about Toussaint.
And and that's real talk too. Also, like, and here's the thing, just so people know, there are Black producers and investors. They are seeking to make these high budget films about Queen Nzinga and Mansa Musa. But the politics are real. Right? The powers that be are real. They shut that shit down so fast whenever they get close to actually putting something together. They push back in the entertainment industry as hard as they are pushing back against critical race theory in our schools. Who's next? Final words.
I just want to hop in real quick before we head out. Just reflecting on our conversation, I don't know if equality is a promised land for us in this country. I'm not sure. But what I will say is that when we in this piece talking about how we tried to survive in a country or in a system that wasn't set up for us to thrive, I think it's important, and just piggybacking off of what Khalil and Courtney said, that we create our own systems outside of this traditional system so that we can inch as close as we can to what looks like freedom and equality and equity and happiness for us. So I just want to keep pushing people, like, where you think that you're not an educator, we all have the ability to be an educator. So think outside of the traditional box that has told us that this way of living, this way of surviving is the only thing that's for us. So that's it. That's my 2 cents.
Powerful.
17-year, fifth generational educator, Jason, who is running for school board in Atlanta, District 9. Final words.
Man, I would definitely end with this, that we are in the fight of our lives. And that is why I left administration to be in the classroom so that this next generation is prepared. This is a spiritual but very physical, mental, and emotional fight, because the reality is, in order to change systems in this country, we're going to have to dismantle them. And I think that those who uphold the status quo showed us in January that we're going to utilize our power to the highest extent to protect the status quo and the inequities that allow only a certain percentage of our population to truly get the liberties and freedoms that this country so often gives. And so those are my final thoughts, that education is the key, and we can't talk about educational advancement without talking about economic advancements and reparations and all the things that come with that. And so education and economics, they go together. That's what I teach my students, and that's what I'm hoping that our viewers would take away today.
Excellent. Well, we are out of time. I want to thank Citizens Ed, the Bright Beam Network, and of course the Black Wall Street Times for hosting this session of TDRS. Also want to thank our guests, Courtney and Khalil. Don't forget to get Khalil's book, Grab the Time magazine, and make sure you're reading the Black Wall Street Times. Till next time, we'll see you later.